Long before David became a king, he was just a shepherd boy, the youngest son of Jesse, overlooked, forgotten, left behind in the fields. While his older brothers trained for war, David watched sheep under the open sky. He fought off lions and bears with nothing but faith and courage. In those quiet fields, David learned to trust God, not in crowds, but alone. One day, the prophet Samuel arrived at Jesse's house. God had sent him to anoint the next king of Israel. One by one, Jesse presented his sons. Strong, tall, impressive. But God rejected them all. Finally, Samuel asked, "Are these all your sons?" Jesse hesitated and then said, "There is still the youngest." David was called in from the fields. Dusty young, unexpected, and God said, "This is the one." Samuel anointed David with oil, and from that moment the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him. David returned to the fields, but he was no longer just a shepherd. He was a king in God's eyes. Soon after, Israel faced its most terrifying enemy. From the Philistine ranks emerged a champion named Goliath, a giant over 9 feet tall, armed with gleaming bronze and heavy steel. For 40 agonizing days, his voice boomed across the valley, mocking Israel and defying their God. The mightiest soldiers trembled in their armor. Even King Saul, their leader, was frozen with fear. Then David arrived at the camp, a young shepherd sent only to bring food to his older brothers. He was out of place in a field of war. When he heard Goliath's taunts, David was not afraid, but filled with a righteous fire. "Who is this man," he declared to all who would listen, "that he dares to defy the armies of the living God?" His own brothers scorned him for his youthful arrogance. The soldiers laughed. To them, he was just a boy, inexperienced and completely unarmed for such a battle. But David remembered the lion he had slain to protect his flock. He remembered the bear. His confidence wasn't in his own strength, but in the God who had delivered him before and would deliver him again. He refused King Saul's heavy armor, choosing instead the simple tools he knew. He walked toward the valley with nothing but his shepherd's staff, a sling, and 5 smooth stones he gathered from a stream. Goliath looked down and roared with laughter. "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" David replied with a voice that rang with faith, "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty." He placed a stone in his sling and swung it once with perfect aim. The stone flew straight and true, striking the giant on his forehead. The great Goliath stumbled and then fell face down to the ground with a deafening crash. The giant was dead. That day, all of Israel learned a powerful lesson. Victory does not come from size or strength, but from unshakable faith in God. David became a hero. Songs were sung in his honor. The people loved him, but King Saul grew jealous. What started as admiration turned into fear, and then hatred. Saul tried to kill David again and again. David was forced to flee. He hid in caves. He lived in the wilderness. He became a fugitive. Yet even when Saul stood helpless before him, David refused to strike back. He said, "I will not harm the Lord's anointed." Though hunted, David trusted God's timing. Though betrayed, he chose mercy. Though suffering, he kept his heart pure. In the darkness of caves, David wrote psalms, songs of pain, hope, and faith. He learned that waiting on God is part of becoming who God calls you to be. The crown was promised, but patience was required. The tragic news came from the battlefield. King Saul had fallen. David, who had been hunted for years, did not rejoice. Instead, he wept, mourning the loss of the king and his friend Jonathan. His heart was filled with grief, not vengeance. The elders of Israel came to him, and in Hebron, they anointed him king. At last, the shepherd boy who had faced a giant received the crown God had promised. King David's first act was to unite the fractured tribes into one nation. He conquered Jerusalem, establishing it as his capital, the city of David. With joyous celebration, he brought the Ark of the Covenant into the city, dancing before the Lord with all his might, a king unashamed to be a humble servant. He ruled with justice and led his people with a shepherd's heart. But even a king chosen by God is still a man. In a moment of weakness, David fell into grievous sin. When confronted by the prophet Nathan, David's pride shattered and he broke down in heartfelt repentance. David learned the true depth of grace, and God made an everlasting covenant with him, promising that his throne would endure forever, and that one of his descendants would be a king whose kingdom would never end. This was a promise that echoed through the centuries. Generations passed. Then in a humble manger, the promise was fulfilled. Jesus Christ, the Son of David, was born. The greater King had come. David's life is a testament that God does not choose the strongest or the most perfect, but those with a faithful heart. He lifts up the humble, forgives the repentant, and uses flawed people for his divine purpose. From a shepherd in a field to a king on a throne, from a forgotten boy to a man after God's own heart. This is the enduring legacy of David.